5, 4, 3. There's still a few people coming in, but I think we'll go ahead and get started. First thing we'll do is welcome you all here. It's not often that we have town hall meetings, but we have had them, and we will have them in the future. And it's a great opportunity for us all to get together and, old saying in the South, chew the fat. So we welcome you here, and we're glad you're here. There will be a time when you'll be able to ask questions, make comments, but we ask first that you just let us go through. And but we do welcome you, and I'd like to start by recognizing my fellow board members. If you'd stand over here, please. Mr. Pat White, Mr. Cap Purvis, Mr. Rick Blau, and Mr. Steve Snyder, right? And we're missing one. Oh, Mike Colicone, he didn't stand. I was going to say we're missing somebody. But anyway, Tom didn't get the message, but that's okay. Welcome, Tom. Anyway, I also want to take time to introduce you, if you haven't met, a good many of our department heads. So if you'll stand, I'll try to remember your name. No. Start with Winston Blazer, our general manager, and Mitzi, his number one assistant there. We got Jeff Gagley, Beth Kaburka, Jim West, Kevin, Calvin Alfont, he's our IT guy. And then we have our AWE expert there, Mr. Andy Fox. Did I miss another one? Way over there, I've got, who do I have over there? Simon Bradbury. And where else is another one you say? Chris Carter, our HR. Sorry, Chris. Mr. Jeff blocked me out there. So anyway, for all you here, if you haven't had opportunity to meet them, that's who they are. And those are the ones that do your daily work for you here in the village. I'd also like to take the opportunity, recognizing today is Veterans Day, to give a heartfelt thank you. Having been in your shoes myself, I know what you went through, and we'd like to thank you for the service that you've given to your country. And I'd like to do that by asking all of the veterans, if they're here, to please stand up. And now I would like to ask the spouse of that veteran or the mother and father of that veteran to stand up, because without you folks back home, we wouldn't have been able to do our jobs. Please. I'm sorry that we don't have a free meal for you, but we will have some free information, okay? Again, we would like to get started. Today here we're talking about two projects that we've been working on for quite some time. As you'll see in these presentations, the wheels turn slow, but they turn slow because we want to do things right. I'd also like to say that you received some information when you came in regarding our collection process. We're not here today to answer that question. We can answer that question, and we will answer that question, but the proper place for that is come to our board meeting, come to our finance and accounting committee meeting, come to the budget meeting this Wednesday, and you'll be more than glad to have you make a presentation or ask the question as it relates to anything that the board does or that the POA does as it relates to your money that you have invested in this village. So, today we're going to focus on two projects. We're going to focus on the Toka Clubhouse, the proposed new Toka Clubhouse, as well as a project that's down in Kahidi to replace the double wide. And we're calling that the Kahidi Community Center. So those are the two projects that we're talking today. We'll talk to you about where we've been, where we're going with those, and then we'll gladly answer any questions and receive comments as we go through through this journey together today. So I think I'm on the docket to start. I'll talk about Kahidi, and then Chuck James. Chuck, he will be talking about TOCA, and then we'll ask our CFO, Parker Owen, to make a financial presentation as to how we're going to fund these projects if they're approved. So I'd like to start with the community center down at Kahidi. Basically, I want to talk to you about the team that we put together to make this happen. I'm going to give you a little history about the pre-conceptual design, talk to you about conceptual design, talk a little bit more about the history before the engineering design, show you where we are with engineering design, which leads us right into construction, and talk about what's next. Before we put the team together to look at the Kahidi double-wide replacement, the board gave us a charter, and those are the two things that you can see up there. First was to determine if indeed we needed to replace the double-wide, and if we did, how big did it need to be? And the second thing was that, what's the justification for doing it? So we had kept those things in mind, and we put together following team. Team consists of Ken Boleen, former board member, Simon Bradbury, which we introduced earlier as the head of our rec department, Rick Thompson, which is Rick here? Just stand up, Rick and Simon, and Ken, if you're here, so that people can see who you are. And then Marianne Covert, I know she's here, I saw her earlier. Where's Marianne? There you are. And John Everson, he's back there, I saw him earlier. Go. And myself and Joe Marlette. Is Joe here? I hadn't seen Joe, but oh, Joe. Sorry, Joe. He's a former board member as well. So that team set out about answering those two questions or two charges that the board gave us. Give you a little bit of history. Way back in 2008, we purchased a double wide. And we wanted it to be a facility where we could do various things for the community down there, serve as their community center, if you will. 2008, it was purchased, and notice that key word up there. It was a temporary facility, okay? 10 years later, here we are in 2018, and it's still in use, okay? So, did I hit the buttons? There you go, go back. And then follow that up. After a while, 2008, 6 years later, we started doing a plan for what not only the main village was going to look like, but what also was happening down in Kahidi. Because if you don't have a master plan, all of a sudden you get a jumble of things that don't fit together. So they came up with a plan, and in that, they had a dream, and the dream was eventually we would get to about a 3,800 square foot facility and just about as the same size portico, and that would be able to satisfy our needs way into the future, if you will. They were trying to think big, and I think they did. So 2015, the board began, and this is a key point, the board began a repair, replace, and renovate program. Now, it wasn't started out that way, and I don't know how it got coined that way, but it actually became a program over time that the board would look at things that were old and worn out and needed to be replaced. And if you did that because they were already in place, if they were being replaced, you didn't have to really go through a needs analysis for a justification because it was already justified. What you had to do is justify any expansion of that. So that's a key thing here. So then in 2016 and 17, we hadn't made a lot of progress, but we put monies in the budget both years, seemingly the same amount, roughly $600,000 with some $200,000 in there from private funding. And that was basically to say, somewhere along the line, we're going to replace this. And we're getting serious about it because we've put money in the budget. So it's been there ever since 2016. It's been in the budget. Now, in 2017, in May, the board said, we're ready to get going. Let's do this, or at least come up with some plans to see if it's feasible, what we should do. And so that's when we put the team together. Now, having been involved in that, we made a decision, the board did, that both committees, the one for Kahidi and the one for Tokwa, would be chaired by someone on the board, because we wanted to point to that guy on the board and said, get it done, get the plans away, and we'll get to the point where it's either approved or disapproved. But you board members, you're the chair, me and Tom Lee, we were designated to be the chairs for those committees, and the reason why we wanted to tag them with responsibility, ownership, if you will, to get these to the point where we are today. And that's what happened in that meeting. Small print, and I'll try to read a lot of this to you, but basically what the committee did was the committee came up with this is what we want. And the way they did that was we collected a lot of data. Simon collected data, Marianne collected data. We boiled this data down and said, these are the kinds of things that we want to do in this community center. And if this is the size of building that we need to be able to do these things. Turned out that we were recommending somewhere building in the 2,400 to 2,600 square foot range. And then coupled with that was the fact that it needed to fit in with the architecture that was there. We didn't want something to stand out like a sore thumb, kind of like a double wide, if you will. And we didn't want, we wanted it to be one story so that it was usable for most of us in the village that have a hard time getting out of bed in the morning and hard time walking around. We didn't want people going up and down stairs, so one level, and so on and so forth. And basically, one of the biggest things that the folks in Kahidi said was, one of our biggest assets down here in Kahidi is the mountain view that we have. And so whatever we do, we want to situate this building in such a way that they can see the beautiful mountains and they'll see a beautiful building. And so that's what you'll see that we've tried to do in our conceptual design. The other part of that was that the community wanted a portico, if you will, and that portico would connect the current clubhouse with the community center in such a way as that you could flow one from the other. Inclement weather didn't matter. You could go through. It made it easily accessible to the restaurant so that if food was being served both inside, under the portico or inside the building, it could happen very easily. So it was tried, and then we had to do all of that within the same footprint of where we are right now. We didn't feel like Jim West would like it too much if we went out and tore up his putting green, nor did we think that the people that golf down there would like it too much if we went out and said, you got to go further away to hit some balls at the driving range, so we're going to try to keep it within the same footprint that we are. So with that, we moved forward and we came up with a contract. We awarded a contract, if you will, to Barge Associates, and they came up with this design. You've seen it out in the lobby, but basically I'd use a pointer, but I'll probably go all over the place with it. Oh, right there. See, this is the existing clubhouse, if you will. This is the portico right in there. This is the building called the community center, and this is the cart barn. So what we did is we used the same place where the existing facility is, but we went out in here a little bit. And the other thing that we told we wanted to do was, this is going to be a 2,600 square foot building. We wanted a capability, you can see it on dotted line right there, very faintly, is that we wanted to be able to expand this building in the future without tearing the building down, or a good portion of it. So they designed it in such a way is that if we ever get ready to add more square footage to it some whatever year out there, that all you had to do was take that wall. I don't know where I am. Where am I? heavy fingers. There you go. We want to design it in such a way that all they had to do was knock the wall down and extend it out without doing extensive refurbishment or renovations to the building. The next chart that you saw out there shows the layout of the facility. Conceptually, we wanted this area up here to, that area right there is the portico. We wanted outside seating. We originally wanted a covered roof to go down the backside so that we could connect it to the swimming pool if we could at one time. We wanted a door here with a kitchen serving area. We wanted a larger room for the activities such as line dancing or aerobics or semi-annual or quarterly meetings. Naturally, we had to have bathrooms. They told us for a building this size, we had to have 3 bathrooms. Then we needed storage up there for tables and chairs and the sort of things that we use. And then we wanted an entrance going from the portico into the building, and then we wanted to beautify it with a front entrance as well. So that was our concept. One of the biggest problems with the concept was and we just didn't quite know how to fix it. And we worked at it, but basically these bathrooms here had pocket doors. And we got comments like you won't believe on pocket doors that everybody can hear us in the bathroom because pocket doors don't close very well. The design people, the engineers, assured us that they have commercial grade pocket doors and that wouldn't be the case. So we said, okay, if you say so. So we moved forward. And then basically we asked them also to give us an estimate at this point in time, conceptually, how much you think this is going to cost us? And if you read these numbers up there, they basically said for us to hire a architect engineer to design this, you know, where you can do electricity and structurally and all that stuff, we had budgeted about $40,000 for it. They came in and said it would cost $62,000. Likewise, they told us there would be a range of costs, square footage for the main building from $140 a square feet to $160 a square feet. You extend that out 2,600 square feet, you get a number that's on the high end of about $416,000. And that it would include the site prep and all that. Likewise, for the portico, they estimated the range was somewhere in the 110 to 120 range. You extend that out, biggest thing, that'd be about $92,000. Is that what that says down there? 192, got it, okay. So a little bit less than what we had budgeted or what they anticipated that they would collect. Okay, with that in mind and with the concept approved, the board met in July. They approved the conceptual design and we moved forward and said, now that we have a concept and we have a vision of what it might look like and it's doable, let's award the engineering design contract, which we did in that same month. And then in September, the engineering design was complete. And then in October of this year, we said, but before we prepare the budget for 2019, we need a little bit better numbers, so let's issue a construction contract just to get bids to see how serious these people are and what it will cost us, and we'll go over that in a little bit. This is basically what the engineering design shows. If you will, that picture that you saw, that's the existing clubhouse area. Right in there is the portico where you can see from front to back, see through to the swimming pool, and then this is the facility. As you can see, we were able to, engineering-wise, blend it in with the whole complex that is down there and make it look like like it should have always been there, if you will. So that's what that looks like. Now, as regards to the floor plan looks very similar, except as we went from conceptual design to the engineering design, the committee said, there's about 10 things that we would like to see changed if they were able to do those at a no cost, if you will. So we talked to them, and they were things like up here, we had windows looking into the pool. What they wanted was all mirrors back there. They wanted windows here and a few more here. They wanted to take those bathrooms and not have pocket doors, as I mentioned. And they were able to do that. They were able to come down through here, and they had to make that a little bit wider. And the reason why is because when you have a hallway like that, that's a dead end, you have to have the capability for someone to make a U-turn, if you will, in a wheelchair. So we had to make that a little wider instead of them coming down here and going into this bathroom, make a U-turn. If it was occupied, they had to be able to make a U-turn, so they made that wider so they could do that. So we still have the 3 bathrooms that are in compliance with code, if you will. And all these restrooms here are ADA compliant. And then we still have the storage. A little bit of offset in that storage room that wasn't there before, and it may be a little bit of surprise to some people, but in a building this big, you have to have a water fountain, imagine. So we had to find a place to put a water fountain that people wouldn't run into when they were exercising or not looking. And what we did also was we designed this serving area in such a way that this little shelf up there will be on wheels so that it can be moved out of the way if we need more room there. So there were a few other things that we did, like moving the air conditioning from up in the ceiling to outside for noise, as well as problems with condensate, et cetera, et cetera. So air conditioning is now outside. We made the portico a little bit bigger. This at one time was grass. It is now concrete. There is a patch up here that we wanted to change to concrete, but we couldn't figure out how to do that because it slopes in so many different ways. So that's going to be our contribution to nature, if you will. We're going to leave that as grass. So having done that, we asked them also to prepare an estimate, if you will. And basically what they did is they took the 2,600 square feet and they said, you know, when you did that conceptual design, which is only a few months ago, well, guess what? The average estimated cost now is not 160 to 180, it's now 200 or more. And so we think you'll be able to get it for 200. They said, however, because the portico was open and not as complex, that they felt like that the portico was still in a safe range of 110 to 120. But the building itself, they estimated that it would go up. So with that in mind, what are the next steps? The next steps are we're having this town hall meeting today, and what this town hall meeting is all about is sharing information with you. We're at that point in time where we've been sharing the information with the committees, and I know the committee members have been talking to various people and trying to get the word out, but we want to get the word out to you so that you can have almost 3 weeks, almost a month before we make a final decision on what we're going to do as far as awarding the contract. So today we're recording this. I just talked to the TVB people earlier today. They said tomorrow, if you happen to be here and forget what you heard or couldn't believe it, and you just will shake your head and say, did he really say that? And the answer is yes, he did. You can see that tomorrow on TVB. For you folks that are new to the village, that's our own television station. And then it will also be available, I believe, under Vimeo. So anyway, you'll be able to see all that's going on. And we'll keep that open. We'll take comments from anyone. Come to our board meetings, come to our workshops, send us cards and letters and emails and whatever you need to do to give us your true feelings as to how you feel about this. Give us some input. Then after that, we will basically be doing the final approval of the engineering design and award and contract, if that's the way we go, at our December workshop, which is December the 4th. So we're down to nitty-gritty, if you will. You've probably heard that all of this is in the budget, and Parker's going to talk to that. So we do our budget, and that's independent of awarding a contract for construction. We'll still need the budget, and we'll still need to approve the contract. So that's where we are, and that's what we'll do if things stay on track. So now's your time, today and for the next few weeks, for you to provide us your comments. So having said that, I'm not going to open the floor to questions just yet. We're going to roll right into Chuck, and Chuck's going to present TOQA, and then after that, Parker's going to present, as we said, and then you'll have your time to answer questions. So if you're like me and you have a little bit of a problem remembering things sometimes, like Rick Blau's name, then you can write them down on a piece of paper, and don't forget them, please.
Thank you, Bruce. Before we get started, I'd like to see a show of hands of how many people lived in Tellico Village prior to 2006. Would you raise your hand? Well, there's more than I thought. How about from 2006 to 2010? And from 2010 to present? There you go, the greatest majority. Well, we've been working on a new TOQA clubhouse for 12 years. Your POA board 12 years ago wanted a new TOQA clubhouse. They had a committee. They hired architects. We're also in the process of starting the wellness center. And things were tough. People were a little squirmy. Should we do it? Shouldn't we do it? And they decided to do the wellness center. Well, we all know that's a wonderful asset in the village. We wish they would have done TOQA at the same time, but they didn't. And the economy went south on us. And actually, over the years, TOQA has been kind of like twists and turns, and something like a road up here not too far from Von Orr that has about 318 twists and turns. And to me, having lived here since 2005, I feel like there has been 318 twists and turns when it comes to the TOQA clubhouse. But I think we're getting somewhere, and I'm very excited to present to you today our plan for the TOQA clubhouse. This actually is the concept drawing for the 2006 TOQA clubhouse. It's 12,000 square feet. It was 3,000 square feet bigger than Tanasi. The parking was going to be underneath. The price was $1.7 million. And upstairs was $185 a square foot. Today we're looking at $250 a square foot. But that's what it was supposed to be back in 2006. So here we are, 2006. It was determined that we'd go ahead with the Wellness Center, but we would not go ahead with the TOQA Clubhouse. And of course, in 2008, the economy kind of crashed on us for quite a while. And nobody was moving down here. And it was all kind of stagnant. Actually, they had to lay off some POA employees during that period. But when we take a look at 2013-14, once again, the interest from the POA board started a committee to get TOQA Clubhouse project going again. And they looked at different things. They looked at updating the TOQA Clubhouse or building a new TOQA Clubhouse. And the upgrade would cost about $780,000. This committee was eventually shut down and didn't really go anywhere. It kind of floundered a little bit. In 2016, a TOQA Clubhouse and Kahidi Annex PIC committee was formed. I was the chair of that committee. And the firm selected by Public Works was Benefield Richter of Knoxville to do some architectural renderings of the Kahidi project and the TOQA project. And the first set of renderings they came up with for the TOQA Clubhouse looked like the old TOQA Clubhouse. So we said, that's no good. Go back and do it over again. So we went back over and did it over again, and it still looked like the old TOQA Clubhouse. So we looked at that, and we looked at what they were doing as far as Kahidi, and the POA board came to us and said, you know, let's shut this down and let's just rethink this whole thing and what we want to do, and look at some other communities and see what they're doing. So in Well, it was actually in 16, in September 7th of 16, Jim West and I went out to visit the Dorchester Clubhouse out in Fairfield Glade. And that was recommended to us by the Long-Range Planning Committee that they had seen this clubhouse and it looked pretty nice. So we went out and we talked to the director of golf out there and his experiences with upland design and the building and how it's worked for them. And we thought, this is a nice looking clubhouse. It's not ostentatious, but it's functional and it would serve our community well. So we came back, and on October 7th, Jim West, Jeff Gagley, and myself sat down with Brian Templeton from Upland Design to show him the Tokwa Clubhouse and the piece of property and what we could or couldn't do. And from there, we went on. In 2017, right at the beginning of the year, really, the POA board created an ad hoc committee. It's not a PIC committee because it's not a project implementation committee. It's an ad hoc committee. And so the chair of that committee that we've had for the past year is Tom Lee, was the POA board member. Andy Fox from AWE was our representative for hospitality. Jim West, our director of golf operations, was on the committee, or is on the committee. Jeff Gagley's on the committee. Jeannie Fancher, who's been on the ACC committee for a long time, is on our committee. Mary Kay Steele, interior decorator, myself, and Ed Valenti, an engineer, have been on this committee. So these are the people that are on the committee. So we hear all kinds of things around Tellico Village, and it's always funny for me to hear some of the comments my wife gets from her people in Fit and Tone and so forth, saying, well, is there anybody from golf on that committee? Is there anybody from hospitality on that committee? Now you know who's on that committee. So, in late 2017, the POA board approved funding for renderings from Upland Design. The committee looked at updating Tokwa Clubhouse. The 32-year-old building update would cost between $800,000 and $1 million to update it. Then we found out, since it is so old, and there really wasn't building inspectors out here 32 years ago really inspecting the building, if we tore into it more than 20% and they found code violations, because now they have actually building code people that go around, we'd have to bring everything up to current code. So we had no idea once we tore into those walls what we'd find. And so that didn't really seem logical. The committee looked at converting the pavilion to a clubhouse. We looked at that. Some serious thought was looked at. The POA board had an engineer look at it. You know, the building itself is really not, the pavilion's really not designed to be a building. It's meant to be a pavilion. And we'd have to basically build up around the pavilion. And plus we'd lose that venue. And so we'd be kind of shooting ourselves in the foot, because this year alone, AWE has recorded that over 7,000 guests will use the pavilion at Tokwa this year. And that's up quite a bit once we got people to understand the rules and regulations for the Tokwa Pavilion. So it's being used, and it's being used quite a bit. So it's a very important venue for our community. In January of 2018, Upland Design presented renderings based on the committee's input. March of 18, the POA board approved the needs analysis that we had to present to them to justify why we want to replace Tokwa. Engineering design, bids for architectural and engineering services for Tokwa Clubhouse were opened in May. Upland, there were 3 bidders. Upland Design was awarded that bid for $60,000 to develop all the blueprints and all the documentation necessary to build that building and put it out on bid. In order to provide accurate numbers, like Bruce said, we went ahead and had it bid out. We asked 6 companies, or I should say Upland asked 6 companies to bid on this project. 4 did bid on the project. And so we have pricing now that the board can work with. What's being replaced? In case you haven't been to Tokwa in a while, this is what it looks like, folks. That's what we're trying to replace. The current footprint is 3,664 square feet. The restaurant seats 51 people. This is the kitchen we want to replace. I imagine most of you have kitchens larger than this in your home. Honest to goodness, if you're sitting there on a Saturday or a Sunday and you're wondering why it's taken so long to get your breakfast, that's it. And we have Monday night steak nights. Some nights they've put out 100 meals in 2 hours from that kitchen. It's amazing. So, absolutely. It is, however, closed tonight for a special event, so don't go over there. But it's a great, steak night's great on Monday night at Tokwa. But this is what we're working with. 32-year-old building. It has structural issues. It can't be updated. It really isn't the first impression you'd like to see of Tellico Village. Okay, some justification for expansion. Growth in the village indicates that we have even greater demand for restaurant facilities. We can't add on to the yacht club. We can't add on to Tanasi. The only place we can in the main part of the village is do something is at Tokwa. Over the last 3 years, the ACC has approved over 300 new homes. And the average age of the residents moving in went from 69 years old in 2015 to 62 and a half over the past couple of years. Indications indicate that the younger residents want more varied amenities, particularly regarding restaurant offerings. And we see that. You know, the group moving in today are looking for those finer places, those nicer restaurants, different things to do. And a lot of the clubs, for a football game, you'll run into the Carolina Ale House, and there'll be 40, 50, 60 people going in there. It'd be nice if we could do it right here in Tellico Village. The new people buying both new and existing homes are more socially active than some of those that moved in 10, 15, 20 years ago. It's just the way it is. You look at the sellouts for new villagers and HOA. It's just amazing what a great job they're doing. Look at resident support. I put this slide in because I think it's important, because you go over the years and all those 318 turns that we see. And HOA had a survey back in 2015, and of the 1,182 households that responded, the number one thing in the category of restaurants, so forth and so on, was a sports bar. And that's kind of what we're looking at. We want to do something like a sports bar. In 2016, the HOA survey, 1,323 households responded, 80% of the HOA. And of that, 71% of the people surveyed said that they felt that updating or replacing Tokwa was either important or very important. So I think the community is reaching out and saying, POA board, this is what we really want. Long-range planning survey, 94% or 40% of the TV households support maintaining, adding, or expanding the amenities we currently have. So this should be a true message to our board and to our community, what we want to do. This is what the new Tokwa Clubhouse would look like, the conceptual design, the front entrance. The new Tokwa Clubhouse compared to the old Tokwa Clubhouse. The new Tokwa Clubhouse would be 6,500 square feet compared to 3,600. The dining room and bar and serving area would be 2,418 square feet. It would seat 115 people and 15 people at the bar. A covered porch, which will be nice, 3,417 square feet. It'll seat about 40 people. We can add to that. We can add tables to that if we need to. The kitchen will be 961 square feet, or like 30 by 30, a little bit more. As you can see, a little bit bigger than the kitchen they currently have. And the pro shop, though, is going to be about the same size. Mr. West didn't want to go mega big on on a pro shop, so it's going to be about the same size. And from the putting greens, this is what the back of the clubhouse would look like. You can see it's got overhang coming over the seating area. And this is coming in from the side parking lot. This would be coming from the putting green to the front of the clubhouse. And on your right-hand side, or on my right-hand side, your left-hand side, those windows there are for the dining room. And this would be coming in from the parking lot. You see the bar to the left. Go straight through. On your right-hand side would be washrooms, and further down would be the entrance to the pro shop. This is what it actually looks like at Dorchester, out in Fairfield Glade, looking toward the parking lot. See, it's a nice wide hallway, and there are pro shops on their right, and the pro shops on the left, and the restaurants on the right. Another view of the restaurant. This is just, Andy hasn't picked out furniture yet, so this is not necessarily what the furniture would have. The carpeting and the colors are pretty true to what we have decided on. You can see the TVs above the bar and behind the bar. Another image of that. Looks like we have a lot of draft beers. That's good. Okay, so here's another view. The TVs, they got flat, but we're going to put them on an angle in the corner so people can view the TVs. And here's conceptually what the pro shop would look like. Got a couple pictures. And the counter. So in summary, here's where we're at. The POA board has approved the following. Ad hoc committee to look into the Toko Clubhouse. They've approved our needs analysis. The building should be replaced and placed in the current location. Upland Design is the architectural firm. They went on a bid process. The blueprints and documentation were all prepared for bidding. We received 4 bids. The Toko project bids are good until December 7th. The budget was $2.4 million. The budget for 2019 has not approved and will be approved on Wednesday at the Yacht Club at 1:30. So if you're interested in seeing if that's going to get approved or not, I suggest you be there. If the contract is approved, the December board meeting, then the workshop construction will begin in early of 2019. Really appreciate your support. We've worked hard on this, and I really think that both of these projects should move forward. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Parker Owen. For those of you that I might not have met yet, I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Tellico Village POA. And I have the easy job, which is to figure out how to pay for all this. And it actually is easy because for 4 going on 5 years now, we have not constructed a new amenity. The last new amenities that were built were the Tokwa Pavilion and the pickleball courts. That was in 2014. So for 4 going on 5 years, we have been funding the Amenity Reserve Fund, but as yet have not spent major dollars out of that fund. Financing is pretty easy when you've got the kind of cash in the bank that we have and will continue to have going into next year. In the Amenity Reserve Fund today, in fact, I pulled it up online just shortly before coming over here, we've got $1,452,000 in the Amenity Reserve Fund. And there's another $444,000 on the way over the remainder of this year and through 2019. So all in, we'll have almost $1.9 million of cash to work with. That makes it pretty easy then to finance the remaining balance, and I'll talk about that here in just a moment. Let's see, I guess I need to change this, don't I? Okay. I was encouraged to keep this short, so I have one slide. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But everything you need to know about financing these two clubhouses is on this one slide. First off, the Kahidi Clubhouse, the total for this project, and by the way, these numbers are now budget estimates. This is what will go into the budget, is already in the budget that will be presented on Wednesday to the board. They are based on current budget estimates, which in turn are based on bids and other estimates for things like furniture, fixture, and equipment that is part of the Tokwa Clubhouse. So this is all in. There's no extras that we get dinged for down the road. For the Kahidi Clubhouse, that bid for the building itself has come in at $636,000. That would be paid in its entirety from the Amenity Reserve Fund. There is a budget estimate or construction estimate of $148,000 for the portico, that to be paid from private funding. That money, I understand, has already been raised. And there might be some additional odds and ends there for things like patio furniture and so forth that might add to that number. But that's the construction cost of the building and the portico. So all in, $784,000 for the Kahidi project. The Tokwa Clubhouse is coming in, again, all in, furniture, fixture, equipments, the building, the whole works, right at $2.4 million, $2,403,000. The way we'll pay for this, we will spend money out of the Amenity Reserve Fund first, and we'll save financing for any bank financing that's required, and there is some. We can't pay all of it out of current cash. But we'll spend the Amenity Reserve Funds first and hold off on the financing until the end. The Tokwa Clubhouse, we will pay $1,203,000, so 50% from the Amenity Reserve Fund, and $1.2 million will require bank financing. Total project then of $2.4 million and change. The rate and term for the loan is yet to be determined. We have met with and talked with our friendly banker at United Community Bank. They have been the financing vehicle that we've used for a long, long time now, going all the way back to the Wellness Center. And they were the bank that agreed to loan us money when no one else would. I wasn't here at that time, but I've heard the way that financing came about, and we visited a number of local banks, and UCB was the one that stepped up to the plate. The loan on the Wellness Center is about $2.3 million, and that will be paid off. Well, I have no doubt that we'll have a note-burning ceremony of some sort. Will be paid off roughly August of 2020. Okay, so we're on the downhill slope of paying off the note for the Wellness Center debt. I don't know, this is yet to be determined, the term of this loan, but probably 10 to 15 years. We did a 10-year term on the medical office building that was completed for the Summit Medical Group location. That was kind of tied in with the lease on that particular deal, was a 10-year lease, so the financing and the lease kind of made sense for 10 years. The Wellness Center we have financed over 15 years, so I'm thinking the clubhouse probably in that 10 to 15-year range, but that is yet to be determined. Once we get past mid-year 2020, we will actually have lower debt service remaining than we have currently in place today. Now think about that just a moment. The debt service on the Wellness Center, because it was a $2.3 million loan, I'm replacing that with potentially a $1.2 million loan. So our debt service post payoff of the Wellness Center will be lower in total than it is today. Total for both projects then totals $3,187,000 combined. $1,839,000 would come from the Amenity Reserve Fund, $148,000 from private funding, and $1.2 million of bank financing. So adding up to 100%, approximately 37% of the two projects combined would be financed with new bank debt, about 5% from private funding, and 58% from cash from the Amenity Reserve Fund. So we've saved up for these projects over a period of 4 to 5 years, but that makes the financing of the balance really pretty easy. I've told others that United Community Bank has been a good partner with us over the years. They've been there when we've needed them, and we've had some perhaps unusual financing challenges that we presented to them, and they've been very helpful, very agreeable to work with us. And they promise that they will do the same on this project. So I have no doubt we'll be able to get the financing, get it on good terms, and be able to afford to pay the debt and service that debt over the long haul. So with that, my one slide is done, and I'll turn the program back over to Bruce.
Well, I stand up here at the pulpit and tell you I just saw a miracle. If you've been to one of our board meetings and listened to, he usually has about 40 slides, so, you know. I also was told when I came in today that my neighbor was here, Denny, and he came up and he said, "You can tell the audience that I've had the structural engineers check the building out, and they're safe. With you on the pulpit, they don't have to worry about the walls falling." So anyway, thank you, Denny. There is one thing that I wanted to do before we get into question and answer, and just to let you know that today is my lucky day in the fire department to be the duty man on the south end. And a good friend of mine, Ken Kersey, where are you, Ken? Ken Kersey in the back right there was so nice that he says, "I will come and be there the whole time in case you get a call. I'll do it. You don't have to run." And I said, darn, that was my, I was going to get Loudencombe to call about, what did we start, 4? I was going to get them about 4:15 to give me an emergency call, and I was out of here, but yeah, I was going to let somebody else know. But Ken, thank you so very much for taking my position there. If you were with us when we did the town hall meeting for the medical center, we're getting to the point now where we're going to do the questions and answers and comments. Here's the rule that I stated then. This is the rule I'd like for you to follow today. If someone happens to get the mic before you do, and they ask your question, you don't need to ask the question again, okay? We get it, okay? We'll get it. We'll be well received. Keep in mind, as I said, this is not a decision-making meeting today. This is an input meeting for you to give us your input, comments and questions, et cetera. So keep that in mind. Whatever you tell us, we will take that into consideration. We'll take that in consideration when we approve the budget. We'll take it in consideration when we get to December the 5th and we make a decision whether we're going with a contract or not. So don't worry that you're going to go out here and you're going to see the dirt and all moving over at Tokwa tomorrow morning. It won't happen, I promise you. So with that, I think Mitzi, you and Beth are going to take the mics around. So with that, we'll start. Mitzi reminded me that we have the department heads here and we have the board here. If you want to direct your questions to any of us, any of the board, or the department heads, feel free. We'll get them the mic so that they can answer the question as well. So with that, the floor is open, folks. Get your soapboxes out and get up on them. Whatever. May I have it turned on?
Hello?
Yep.
The private funding for Kahiti, is that a donation or a loan? I wasn't clear on that. Does it have
Well,
repayment?
I could let John, who's here? Is Tom McPhee here? Okay. John, you want to answer that question? The question was, did you hear the question? It's 100% donations from the people. People up there wanted this to happen. They've been at this now at least 2 years, maybe longer. And they put the money in it, and it was put into like a trust, if you will. And that money's been sitting there, and they're still collecting money because what they wanted was a portico, and they wanted that portico outfitted in the way they wanted outfitted. It's kind of like when I went out to Yellowstone. You ever been out there and you saw the Indian monument that's been built? You know, they wanted that so bad that they're funding that 100%. Well, these guys in Kahiti want a portico, and they've taken on the challenge and they've done it. One over here behind you, Beth.
What's the duration of construction for each of the projects? And for the Tokwa project, is there a plan for providing other restaurant services, doing something to add facilities in the pavilion or some new hours for the yacht club, something of that nature?
Well, I can tell you the construction, I believe, where's Jeff? About a year or less? 6 months on Kahiti, and how long on Tokwa? 9 months to a year on Tokwa. Now, during that time, the people down in Kahiti are going to have to give up their beloved double wide. It's going to be moved up to Tokwa, so there's your new clubhouse, folks. Actually, it's going to be used as a temporary facility for the pro shop, and I believe Andy said something like a snack bar in there, a minor snack bar. Is that correct? And the pavilion. He's going to operate out of the pavilion, but I think he said something like, if you like square nabs, you can get you some in there with a Coke maybe. You know what square nabs are? That's a North Carolina term for Nabisco crackers that are square. Okay. As far as restaurant, Andy, you want to take that one on?
So to answer the question, we've got Tanasi will open for breakfast 7 days a week, effective immediately after construction starts. And the yacht club will open up for lunch as soon as it gets warmer, probably end of March, early April. And the pavilion will be open again, end of March, early April. The pavilion will be open as a snack shack for golfers 7 days a week.
Okay. Got another question right there? Yep.
Yes, I have one. Over here. Have you done revenue projections for this? And is Tokwa built out as large as it can be for, is it at its maximum size?
Meaning after we build this, can we expand it? Who wants to take that one on? Tom Lee, where are you? Tom back there, he can. You want to answer?
We are fairly landlocked at the Tokwa location. As you know, there's a sidewalk, cart path, and then the putting green behind that. I wouldn't say that it couldn't be done, but we think that the size of the proposed facility will be adequate for the foreseeable future. It obviously could be expanded if it becomes necessary.
Bruce, and maybe this is for Parker,
Okay.
being a fiscal conservative, I'm wondering how this fits into the other essential needs of the community in terms of roads and sewer and possibly water. And maybe, Parker, you could speak to how this financing keys into the things that we have to do to maintain the good quality of life that we have now.
Well, let me take about 15 seconds and say that if you've been through our budget hearings over the last month or so, you see that's something that the board struggled with. Not struggled, but worked hard to do. We went first this way, and then we went that way, and then we came back. Well, the last challenge we gave to the CFO and our general manager was, here's what we want to do. Tell us if you can do it. Tell us if we're dreamers. Tell us what's going on. So with that as a background, I'll let Parker answer. Is it on?
I think this one, yeah, there we go. Okay. We've had a number of budget meetings along the way. Many of you were in attendance there, but admittedly, we've not had a crowd of this size at any of the budget meetings. We will be presenting for approval a summary of the budget on Wednesday. But to speak to the question, yes, this budget, the challenge was to figure out how to do everything that we needed to do and some of the things we wanted to do. This budget has a plan for road work incorporated into it that represents current best thinking. That is going to be updated over the next couple of months to try to fine-tune that going into the early part of next year. But there is adequate funding both from the amenity standpoint and the R&M, reserve repairs and maintenance standpoint, and water and sewer to be able to do those things that we need. It doesn't come without a price. We did have to modify some of our reserve funding formulas. So one of the things you'll see in a budget presentation or budget summary, beginning in 2020, the year after the clubhouse construction, we will move some reserve funding away from the amenity reserve and move that toward the R&M reserve. We've already, going into 2019, increased R&M reserve funding by 4.25%. We'll bump that up another 3.5% in 2020 going forward. So starting in 2020, over 20% of net collectible assessments will be going into the R&M reserve. Now that's a big number. It's the biggest. It's traditionally been around 12, 13% over time, but we recognized the challenge of meeting our needs for road work, and that's what it takes to step that up. So don't expect to see any big flashes in the way of amenities after 2019, at least not for a while, but we're certainly not going to let the physical plant deteriorate. Likewise, on water and sewer, we're faced with increasing maintenance costs for both water line and sewer line maintenance, also things like sewer lift stations. We've also got the challenge of the possibility of having to build a water storage tank in there. All of that takes money, and indeed that does result in an increase in water and sewer rates, user fees. So there's no free lunch and no printing press that I found in the back corner of my office anywhere, but the way we'll pay for that is the same way we paid for it traditionally, which is a combination of the assessment rate that you're charged each month and judicious increases in user fees. I would encourage you, if you're interested in the details, come to Wednesday's meeting. If you've missed some of the earlier budget sessions, we'll give you a high-level summary at that time.
Okay.
I was wondering if you can share with us the square footage in the Kahidi Activity Center that's actually usable, not the footprint, because you can't meet in the bathrooms or the hallway or the storage room, as compared to the usable square footage in the current double wide.
Okay. If I recall, the total square footage of the double wide is around 1850. That's the whole building with storage and bathrooms and everything. And the new building, I don't know exact numbers right without looking, but somewhere in the 1850 to 1900 square feet will be the actually big room. Actually, what Simon's over here, but basically, when we went through the needs analysis, including the quarterly and semi-annual meetings, the room that we have designed in the big room will accommodate the exercise classes, more than accommodate any of those, and it will accommodate, if you use the standard square footage of like, I can't remember what the number is, somewhere around 7 square foot per person on average. I can't remember the number, but it turns out to be that it will house somewhere in the neighborhood of like 160 to 75 people in that big room. That's what the conceptual design engineers told us. Simon? You're going to have to say that again. They can't hear you.
It's also with the usable space right now, you have vents on the floor that you can't use. You also have
And
pylons
post,
in the way.
yeah.
So now it's going to be opened up, so we'll have a lot more usable space out of it.
And the usable space, when you're not using the serving area, you move your wheeled counter out of the way, it expands your usable space there when you're not using it for food service. And by the way, for those folks in Kahiti that are on the community, they know, and I hope they've passed along, that is not a food prep area, it's a food service area. Meaning it's there for people who bring in like covered dishes and things of that nature, but it will not have like your normal kitchen facilities like stoves and whatnots. So there will be some storage area there where they will be able to keep some things, but basically it's for food service. Most of the food prep, if you notice that on the layout door from the restaurant, there's a straight path to the door going into the kitchen serving area as well. There's one right there. Mitzi.
Bruce,
Oh, okay.
You've indicated that it's a very social population that's coming in. There is currently one private room where you can have food and an event at Tanasi. From what you saw, I saw 0 of them at Tokwa. Is that accurate?
Chuck, you want to answer that? You turned off?
That's correct. There's not a separate room in the new Tokwa Clubhouse. However, you're going to have a new venue down at Kahiti, certainly, that you can use for events and so forth, because they're part of the village as well. But there wasn't, the constraints of the budget and everything, it just wasn't practical right now.
And we also feel like that once the Tokwa restaurant is open and we have the Kahiti facility open for sizable crowds, the room that's up in Tanasi will be much more available as well, because it won't. We're hoping that some of the restaurant crowd at Tanasi will thin out. Some. We know people love the place. Okay, next.
Yeah, I have a question. It was asked before about revenue projections, but my question is, basically we're adding a 100 table restaurant down at Tokwa, and I think AWE's already running a couple of those, and they're attracting subsidies from the POA, which we all support with dues. So has there been projections? Do we know what the business case will be? Do we know what the traffic will be at this Tokwa restaurant? And speaking of traffic, have we done any traffic studies so that we know what the traffic will be on Clubhouse Drive and on Tokwa Road leading into it?
You want to talk to that, Andy, on the first part?
As far as revenue projection, I'd like to think based on Tanasi that it'll probably be 2 to 2.5 times the revenue that Tokwa's doing now. What was the other question?
Well, you talked about the traffic, and I'll get
Okay.
yeah.
But I mean, that's really, we'll just have to wait and see and sort of play it out, but it'll be part of the quarterly reviews that are happening at the board meetings every 3 months. So we'll all be able to track it together and talk about where the goods and the bads and what's going on.
He also asked about the subsidy.
He's just asked about, will our subsidies increase?
No, there should be no subsidy at all. If anything, and I'm talking to many hundreds of people right now, but hopefully there will be just the opposite, and there'll be money coming back in rather than going out.
I will add that if you've been watching our financials and you've been looking on the, our subsidies at Tokwa and Tenasseee now are zeroed out. We're down to zero. We're working and not forcing, that's a bad word. We're trending down on the subsidies at the yacht club as well as at Kahiti. So that's our goal, is to one of these days get to the point where we're subsidy free on these restaurants.
I have a question on the amenities budget. It appears that a lot of the reserves have been channeled into amenities so that these projects can take place. If something catastrophic were to happen, something in the infrastructure, do you have adequate funds to take care of that?
We try to plan for and allow for, the foreseeable events and demands that are placed on our R&M reserve. I don't know what catastrophic is. I can think of a couple of things that might fall into that category. Things that would meet my definition of catastrophic many times would be insured events. Major building burns down or gets taken out by a tornado or something of that nature. A major crash in the economy and another real estate crater like we saw in 2008. We adjusted and managed through those difficult times, and we would do the same again. We do recognize that the R&M reserve needs additional funding, so we're taking steps to do that. Like I said, we have saved up for these two amenity projects over the course of 4 to 5 years, and have been able to raise most, but not all, of the funds required. And similarly, when the Wellness Center was built, that predates my tenure here at the POA, but a little over half of the Wellness Center project was financed, and a little less than half of it was paid out of amenity reserve funding that had been built up over several years. So, yes, we do make plans for amenity additions over time, and this is where we find ourselves today. As to what other catastrophes might arise, I tend to try to be an optimist and think that not that the good times will go on forever, but that we've got a lot of good things underway right now, and hopefully those trends continue.
I will add that the board, in doing this deliberations, we kind of have bantered back and forth, and there's a good many people on the board that share your concern. I'll promise you that, and you can bet that they're looking out for our infrastructure. I believe a few of them on the board, Mike in one particular, he eats infrastructure for breakfast, so yeah.
First, I want to thank Chuck, Parker, and Bruce for putting this on tonight. As you know, I am a board member. I ran for this office based on transparency. So today I want to discuss some of the facts that you all have a right to know. This has been a challenging year for the Property Owners Association. We experienced several unexpected issues in 2018. The pool dehumidifier replacement that was unbudgeted, road paving projects that came in over budget, a low water pressure issue on the north end, which may result in building a water tower at the cost of approximately $750,000, plus the cost of land, and a sewer system that had unexplained pump failures. To resolve some of these issues, funds were taken from the reserves. Although the board is working to increase funding to the reserves in 2019, in the 2019 budget, we will also be faced with major expenses for the repair of the Wellness Center natatorium roof, estimated between $200,000 and $400,000, based on whether we're going to put shingles or a metal roof. Plus more funds for the interior repair. A possible water tank construction in 2020. The unknown cost of sewer repair, which some professionals estimate could cost from $500,000 to $2 million. And of course, a study is going to be done on that to determine what it will cost. And road repair, resurfacing costs that are spread out from 2019 to 2033, with $4 million worth of road work scheduled for 2024. There is also the consideration of building 2 major amenities that will reduce the amenity reserve to $17,000 for 2019. For whatever reason, property owners may not be aware of the previously mentioned issues, but it is not because the board has not discussed them in open board meetings. Do I believe that similar problems exist in our households, in our personal lives? Yes, I do. And as we see in our households, emergencies occurs when we least expect them. Hopefully, we are financially prepared to deal with them. As a board member and property owner, that is what I propose for our community. So, should our village prepare our reserves to meet these challenges when the need arises? Should we strengthen them financially over time so that we don't run the risk of depleting them and incurring more debt? The answer to those questions varies within our community. In 2018, the Long Range Planning Advisory Committee conducted a survey in which over 1,600 households responded. 61% of the respondents stated they wanted the POA board to maintain what we have and add improvements as the need is justified. As a board member, I heard that. Some find it difficult to demolish the existing clubhouse that has had engineered repairs to ensure its structural integrity. My experience lends me to believe that 2 projects in 1 year would not give our amenity reserve the chance to increase its funds without the danger of depletion or incurring more debt. I really do want to thank you all for coming tonight just to be informed and to provide your input. And again, I do want to thank Bruce, Parker, and Chuck. I think they did a great job presenting their information as well. Thank you.
Bruce? Question about traffic, follow-up to that. Increased traffic means parking. Has that been looked at? And if we do need increased parking places at Tokwa, do we have the budget for it?
Chuck.
As far as parking, at Tenassi, there are 119 parking places. At Tokwa right now, we have 139. And that back area can be expanded. We figured it out to about 170 parking places. As far as traffic on Tokwa Club Way, we will be open for dinner as well, so it'll be kind of spread out. You know, people will be coming more.
Jeff, you got an answer for him? Yeah. Can't hear you. Need a mic. There you go.
In 2020, we have $25,000 in the budget to overlay the gravel area that's currently being used on the western side, I believe, of the parking lot. And if we need to expand more than that, we've got a berm area behind that we could clear off and level up, but we'll have to wait and see if that demand's there.
First of all, I want to say thank you to the POA board for the work that you do. I'm a relatively new member of Tellico Village, and I can tell you that if it weren't for the quality of the amenities that are already here, particularly the golf and the recreational facilities, my wife and I would never have come here. And I'd like to think that there are a lot of other people who probably fall into that same boat. Second, this is probably a hospitality question, but related to the revenue and traffic issues. Being an avid golfer, I was just wondering if there are any plans upon completion of the construction projects to expand the hours of service, particularly at Toco, where it's nice to finish a round of golf in the afternoon and come in for a beer or something to eat, but they button up at like 4 o'clock and everybody goes home. I was thinking it might increase traffic.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to let Andy answer that, but before we do, I will tell you that in the planning for this and the type of facility we wanted, there was one thing I said to Andy, and I said, Andy, if this thing comes to fruition and we do this, you will not be going home when halftime of a Green Bay Packers or a New England Patriots game where they're fighting for a championship. You have to stay open and see it to its end. So with that as a background, Andy?
We are open for Super Bowl when 90% of the people do leave at halftime.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
The concept is a sports bar. The Toco Clubhouse is by far the preferred space for breakfast. So assuming that things stay similar, this is a 7-day-a-week breakfast, lunch, and dinner restaurant. So whether we're open until 9, 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night is really based on you and usage. So if you guys all want the place to be open till midnight and you're there and you're using it, we'll be open till midnight. So it's up to you.
Yes, for the most part, I've been delighted with what we've heard tonight. I'd like to commend the board for doing all the work and bringing it to this. That being said, I've lived here for 19 years, and even though you said that the Toco Clubhouse has been on the agenda or in the 5-year plan for the last 12 years, when we first came here 19 years ago, the real estate agent said they're going to eventually, fairly soon, replace the clubhouse. So to me, it's been on the 5-year plan for 25 years. Not being a pessimist, but I'd like to know, with that background, what kind of assurances you can give us that you're going to proceed with this, because we already know that we've got at least one no vote on the board. So are we going to go home happy, those of us that want the Toco Clubhouse, or not?
Well, we do things in order here on the board. And right now, as I told you, this is a fact-gathering meeting, information gathering, that the board will take things. We've gone a long way already to take issues like Mike brought up to make sure that we can have a budget that will indeed take care of our infrastructure, even to the point where it's covering major road work toward the back end of the 5-year plan. Now, we are, as he said, doing a study in this December and January that's going to either refine those numbers or push them up higher. But I can tell you now that what we tasked our CFO to do was tell us we can. If he comes back and says, no, you can't do it, we can't do it. We can't do some things. We're not going to drive this village in the ground. I can promise you that much. But I will tell you that the community wants something of this nature, and if we can afford it, the board will take that into consideration. We will also take the finances in consideration. And again, first step is to see if the board agrees with the budget that's been prepared covering all these needs. And if it does, then we'll go forward and we will take the bids that we received, and then the board and the finance committee and whatnot will look at those and say, is this a good contract? And if it is, then we'll vote on it in December to award it. But we got to get the first steps first. We collect the information, we weigh the information, we make decisions. Can we afford it? Can we do it? Will it make the people happy? Will it cause some of us to go over here and jump off these bridges and all that kind of stuff? I don't know. We'll see. But I would like to stand here today and tell you that, yep, I've informally polled the board and it's a go, or if I'm informally polled the board and it's not a go. I don't know the answer to that yet, but we will take all the information and we'll do what you have asked us to do, and that is to weigh heavy on our minds when we lay our heads down at night as to what we want to do. December the 4th, that's a Tuesday at the board workshop. And that's, I can't remember, workshop, the meeting is in the morning, right? Where's Mitzi?
10 a.m.
10 a.m. And normally we have our workshops in the POA office, probably that one because of the interest involved. We'll probably have it at the yacht club as well if we got space.
Sir, over here now.
Okay.
This whole thing seems to break down to about 4 categories. One of them being is we all want. Everybody wants nice things.
Sure.
Number 2, how much does it cost? We read the figures up here. I did construction work for 40 years. I've never seen a job like that run yet that didn't have a big time overrun. Somebody's got to pay. The other thing is, who pays and for how long? You can't try to pay it off in 5 years, 10 years, whatever. I won't be here, I doubt, if I'm here 10 years from now. I've been here 21, been fine. But I'm not getting any younger, and most of us aren't. People come in 20 years from now, they're going to come in, we got them build them a new clubhouse, and they got it free. It doesn't work that way. I was involved in the yacht club. You stretch it out so the people come in, pay. The new people come in. But cost overruns are a big factor in a construction job of that size. Somebody's got to start looking at it.
Well, we've talked about it in our board meetings, how we're going to manage that. We've come up with a management plan using the combination, like we should, of the architectural engineer firm, as well as our in-house staff. We also have a PIC that will be formed. That's the project implementation team. We plan to load that team up with people like yourself that has experience so that we can keep our thumb on the construction firm and keep them. Now, I come from the Army Corps of Engineers, so I know a lot about cost overruns and I know a lot about construction as well. So it's a matter of how you manage it and whether you've got contingencies put into your estimate to begin with, and I believe we do. So, you know, will we have cost overruns? We may, but I can promise you it won't be because we'll have scope creep. There was another part of your question is how long will it take to pay it off? I think Parker answered that already. But here's the other thing too. You say that these buildings are paid for by people that are coming in here later. Not so. It's the people like you and me, the ones that have been here, that have made contributions to these amenity reserves. So we're paying for a good portion of these buildings is money that we have paid over the last, in my case, 12 years. And I don't know, your case, you said a long time, right? Yep, and so you've been putting into this and you want this stuff, and so you've put your money in there. Now the board, if it approves it, is saying we're using your money effectively and we're trying to keep this community modern, progressive, forward moving, so that people will come in here and want to do like you did, contribute to the funds so that they can have better buildings down the road. I don't know.
Well, thank you, Bruce.
Yep.
Well, tagging on to the fellow in the blue sweatshirt up front and to the fellow over here who's a relatively new villager, 7 years ago when Bobby and I came here for our tour, unofficial tour at that point, and our tour guide noticed our reaction to the Tokwa Clubhouse, ugly, dated, can't be remodeled, said, well, the POA is talking about rebuilding or redoing it. We all came here because of the existing amenities. We came here because of the golf course, because of the lake, because of the wellness center, and throughout the years, the POA board has added and amended those. While I was originally vehemently opposed to the Welcome Center, that has certainly been a wonderful, wonderful addition to Tellico Village, which has helped bring in a lot of new folks. And we all came here for what kind of amenities exist right now. We don't want a stake in the ground saying 2 or 3 or 5 years from now, after we fund some fund to eternity, that we'll have enough money and we'll look at maybe redoing Tokwa and redoing Kahidi at that point. So my charge to you, Mike Colacone, and maybe Steve Schneider, who are opposed to this, is this is part of your job, to figure how to respond to property owners who have strongly stated, as the POA surveys have shown, that we want new, updated amenities now. Thank you.
Rick, thanks for the comments. Just 2 items to be clarified. Number 1, talk about the amenity reserves and how we're going to handle all the maintenance. You were told we're going to be okay, and that I believe that number based upon the 7-year plan we put together. But it assumes POA fees must go up 5% a year for the next 6 years in order to cover our expenditures plus build the reserve. So let's get that out there. 5% a year each year. Number 2, to fund the Tokwa Clubhouse, the $1.2 million, if we look at the financing, I believe 15 years, total cash expended will be $1.8 million. So the total project isn't 2.4. It'll be $3 million with the interest applied to the loan. So one option would be, instead of each homeowner paying $300 to fund the clubhouse, you spend $200 per individual on a special assessment to raise the 1.2, but it'll be your choice. So just to be clear, it's going to cost us $3 million, not 2.4, and it will be 5% a year. That's it.
Hello. Hello. Okay, I had a question for you. The bids that you have in for the bids that you have in place for the Tokwa Clubhouse, those are, right now they're locked in till a certain date, correct?
Correct.
Because I know that right now with the hurricanes and everything else that happened, the price is going to go up, so you are locked in now for the completion of that project. Is that correct?
Correct.
Good.
Till
Thank you.
December the 7th.
That's what's needed.
Now, let me just say, add to that, that we tried, the board, one of the options that the board looked at was deferring this from starting doing a contract now to like waiting maybe till next fall to do it, award the contract, so that we could build it, and then by that time the wellness center would be completely paid off before we had to have a construction loan. But our engineer came back, the AE came back and said, if you do that, the bids that you got and the costs that you got now, you can throw those out the door, because you can expect them to increase anywhere from 10 to 15% in 9 months' time. So, you know, talking about how do you effectively use your money and your borrowing power, you have to take that in consideration. Do we do it now, or do we wait 9 months and pay another $400 or $1,000 or more just because we need? When we found a way to do it through our budgeting process and whatnot. Now, Steve has a valid point. You know, there are various ways to finance this. One is through a special assessment, but for us to do a special assessment, we have to take a vote of all property owners, and highly unlikely we're going to get that done in time to award a contract. That'd probably take us a year to get that done. And so that's a way to do it, and we could do that, but I think that you know, you have to take that into consideration too when you look at time value of money and all those good things. So, good points though.
All right, I bought a property out here in 1986. I moved here in 91.
Can't hear you. Can you hold it up closer?
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I bought here in 1986.
Okay.
I moved all the way from Farragut in 1991 here. When we bought, we were guaranteed it would be $25 a month. That was never going to go up. Golf was free. The first bill they put on the golf was golf carts, $200 fee for your cart a year so they could maintain the cart class. Took 30 some odd years for TOPA to repair those damn cart paths. But what I'm saying also is we have a brand. Tellico Village has a brand. The golfers came here because of 3 golf courses, 3 damn good golf courses. Also, if you think and you look around, if you don't keep your brand up and know where you are, you'll go like A&P, Sears, Kmart, Montgomery Ward. They went because they didn't keep their brand up. We have to keep our amenities good, but not going completely crazy. I'm paying 5 times what I was guaranteed would never go up. And I don't look that stupid. But we just love it here and we're not going to move.
Hey, Bruce.
Whoa.
Yes. This is more of a request rather than a question.
Okay.
I know Keith is going to post the video. Will you make sure that these slides get posted on the POA website?
Surely.
Thank you.
Surely. There was a question down here on front. We got time for about maybe 100 more questions. No. About maybe, I see hands up here. About 3 more questions. You back there, you here, and this guy here.
Okay. My question refers to, I'm very excited about Tokwa, the new Tokwa, and 2 or 3 times as much business going there. What I would just implore the board is the word defer something gets me really nervous, and the parking spaces. I think I could speak for everybody in this room. If we had too many parking spaces in Tokwa, I don't think anybody would be coming up and say, why did you make so many damn parking spaces? So if you have that luxury of putting more parking spaces in open ground, I don't think anyone here would accuse you of throwing money away by making more parking spaces. That's my only request.
Okay. We do have plans to expand the parking, and we promise that we will keep our finger to the pulse on that. Matter of fact, we have one board member that is working his fingers to the bone trying to figure out how many parking spaces and how many meeting rooms that we need in this facility, in this village. There was a question here, up here in the front. He's been patient, right? We're right here, him and then you.
Well, then I'll defer to this gentleman.
There you go. He's been patient.
I guess it's a statement. I'm very encouraged, looking at the way you want to finance this. You've got $2 million in loan money coming off the Wellness Center. You're deferring until 2020 to borrow $1.5 million. That's a savings. It isn't going to be cumulative, it's a savings. I think that's a plus to the way the money is being looked at. And I think that's a miss in the way the conversation has been. Some people have missed the fact that debt is coming off of the Wellness Center and less debt is coming on for the TOCO financing. I think that's important for everybody to understand. That's fiscally responsible from my perspective, and thank you.
Wait a second, down here, okay.
Okay, thank you for this presentation. Just to get a numbers question. In 2019, presuming you go ahead with the contract for TOCWA, what is our reserve position? And I'm speaking of any reserve bucket you have, the R&M, the amenities, and I think there's one other reserve. What is that number?
At the end of 19, or when?
Let's just say the beginning of 2019,
Okay.
presuming that you've made a contract to begin to build TOCWA.
Okay, going into 19? Okay.
Let me come up to this mic where I can both read my numbers and speak. Okay, per the budget plan, at the beginning of 19, the amenity reserve would have $1,444,000. I think it's actually going to be a little bit higher than that. I'm guessing about $1,500,000 at the start of 2019. There will be another 300. Yeah, a little over $300,000 going into the amenity reserve in 2019. Now, admittedly, we drained the amenity reserve fund by the end of the year because, $1.8 million comes out. So you build it up, you drain it back down. The R&M reserve at the beginning of 2019, again, I'm estimating that at the beginning of 19, about $750,000 at the start of the year. We put $1.5 million into the R&M reserve during that year, and we use almost $2 million during the year. So R&M ends the year at $262,000. In the years subsequent to that, though, remember, I've changed the reserve funding formulas, so now there's an extra almost over 7 points going into the R&M reserve in 20, higher than went into the R&M reserve in 2018. So you start to recover. The reason, for the most part, that R&M reserve gets such a big hit in 2019 is road work. $720,000 for pavement preservation for HA5. That's the product that's used. Parking lots and cart paths, another $150,000. About $250,000 for paving of roads. So roads, make no mistake, 2019 is going to be a busy year. And so there will be a lot of money spent on road work. That's kind of the peak year. But then there's more to come after that. 2020 is a big year. 21 down just a little bit. 22, there's not much in that year. And then you kind of fall off the cliff again in 24. So, again, this will all be studied, reviewed many times over before we get from here to 24, 25, 26. But that's the reason that at least the current plan does require that we build those reserves up over time so that we'll be able to afford to keep our roads in good shape for the long term. And make no mistake, our roads are in pretty good shape right now. But over time, yes, they need attention just like any other facility. As to water and sewer, I do want to speak to that just fairly quickly. We try to keep reserve funding kind of in silos. The board has the authority to move money between reserves, but if water and sewer has a problem, water and sewer users need to pay for that problem. Okay, so if the cost of water lines, sewer lines goes up, that's got to be reflected in water and sewer rates. And it's not proper to take money from another fund, even R&M, and use it for water and sewer needs. So that's been our philosophy over time. The budget, as we put together, this was a challenging year, make no mistake about it. But all of the reserves are fully funded going in. They all are positive throughout the 6-year time horizon that we look at. But yes, it takes more money to keep them that way. Hope that helps.
Well, we don't have to have our budget meeting Wednesday. We just, you got it. Yeah.
First of all, I want to thank you all for doing all the work you did on this presentation. And I will tell you in the form of input that the only thing I'm disappointed in is not seeing a quote to put the Toco Clubhouse out there between number 18 and number 9. I mean, I know that pavilion sits there, but I think that's the best spot for it, and I'm really disappointed it's not there. But thanks for everything you've done. Appreciate it.
Okay. Somebody told me the other day, they said, they were making this argument for the clubhouse or the roads, whatnot, and they basically said two things that really struck a chord with me. They said, number one is that you don't come here because of the roads, right? But you do stay here because of the roads. You know, if we don't build the amenities and be progressive, the people won't come. But on the other hand, just as Mike and Steve are saying, if you don't take care of the roads and the infrastructure, you won't stay here. So we, the board, are faced with the challenge of doing both. And it's been a tough go. We've had to do some giving and some taking, and that's what the board's all about. My whole tenure, the last 3 years that I've been on this board, is trying to reach compromises, trying to reach win-win solutions, and working with the staff and working with the board, pulling everybody together. I think we as a community are headed in the right direction, and we want to be the prime example of where people want to live in East Tennessee. So I thank you for coming tonight. And again, we invite you, thank you. We invite you to the board meeting this coming Wednesday. We will be looking at the budget and
Hey, Bruce, we had
Excuse me, I
two
have a
more
question.
questions that were waiting for
Okay.
a long
Yeah.
time.
okay.
Hello.
Can we take two more?
I
Him and
take two more.
Thanks, Bruce.
Wait just a second. If there's anybody that feels like they just need to go, feel welcome. We won't consider it, we'll consider that you got to go. Okay?
Excuse me, Bruce, thank you.
Okay.
First, I want to say thanks. My name is Rich Sank. My wife and I moved here in Kahiti in May. And I want to say also thanks to John Everson and his committee for what work they have done in Kahiti to bring about where we are now. And I thank you guys for being forward-thinking, because you have to be. I have a little bit of experience in Florida, where I just moved from, being on the board there, and we just approved and completed a $1.5 million expansion to our clubhouse. We went from a 3-star resort to a 5-star resort, which we always thought we were, but we weren't. We were lacking. So you have to be forward-thinking. So I appreciate that, and appreciate you guys for having that foresight. What I'd like to say, and especially you with the construction or experience that you have, once we get the bids in, has any consideration been given to, once somebody submits them, maybe we can combine and use the same company for both projects and save a lot of money?
Well, we have to go through this process of bids, and then we look at them. There's a range in price from low to high, and then we will depend on our architect engineer to advise us. You know, we're familiar with some of the construction companies, and then we'll see. If it turns out that there is some synergy because it's one guy, I will tell you that the 3 bids that we received on each project, they all bid on both projects. So there may be some synergies, and that's some things that we look at as we go through trying to award a construction contract if we get to that point.
Okay, my other comment was that someone else earlier had mentioned funds and monies and things like that. What we had done to raise money to do this is, I know in Kahiti you can't do it because you're attached to POA here in the village, or the whole village here, is we changed our bylaws. And any new people coming in and purchasing property, we had a set amount, it was $2,000, that you paid, and that went toward the monies that we outlaid to keep the amenities up and going. So like one gentleman said, you know, I'm paying for everything now, and I've been here. What about the people in the future who are getting it for free? Well, we thought about that and didn't think it was very fair, so we changed the bylaws, and they contribute into it. But thank you for your time, and appreciate it.
Well, I will address that last point, and that's recommendations have been made by various people that have moved here. They compare us to like Rarity Bay, where they do something similar to that. Problem is right now is it's not our bylaws that won't allow us to do that. It's our covenants, which you know, for us to get that changed, that takes a 2/3 vote of all property owners, not just people that live here. And we've been able, over the history of this community, I believe, Winston, one time to do that? One time, and that was like pulling hen's teeth, as the old saying goes. So not likely that we can do that, and we can't separate out a special, a group of people and treat them any different than we do all people. So that's a little bit, we're handcuffed in that regard, but good ideas, and we like ideas like that, and we, as a matter of fact, I got that same email from Chuck James one time. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Carol Paget.
Hi,
Jack and I
Carol.
bought a lot here 31 years ago,
There you go.
back when the dues were $25. There were two buildings here, the sales building and Toqua Clubhouse. 31 years ago, Toqua Clubhouse and the sales building. The sales building is where Lakeside Realty is now. It is past time for Toqua to be rebuilt. I am a golfer. I've played all over the state. We need to be bringing in golf tournaments from all over the state and other places. We need the facilities to do that. I appreciate you all working and being on the boards and being on committees, but it is time for Toqua. Thank you.
I think that's it. Thank you so very much for coming, and all I can say is try to stay dry.